Welcome back everybody. Today we're gonna play Astra on Lotus. Today is day 135 of playing every agent on every map. Today's agent Astra is one of my favorite agents to play. You have a lot of creativity with, for example, recall smokes or just placing stars in a lot of different spaces and then using them as a stun, sock or even as a smoke to kind of throw off the enemies. Also, her ult is pretty strong and she has a pretty lurky playstyle, or can play as in a pretty lurky playstyle, because she has util all over the map and it is pretty easily to fake a side on an Astra with just the Astra util. Other than that, also using her on retakes is a pretty good idea because you have also her ult to kind of like stop the enemies from hearing you and getting a free defuse in. A map like Lotus that is pretty attacker sided can easily be manipulated by an Astra that's playing pretty well, putting her stars all over the map, making it really easy for your team to retake the spaces that the enemies have taken on attack, and you can use that pretty effectively to defend with an Astra as well. Starting off with A-side defense. On A-side defense you can start the round off by placing a star right in the beginning of the round, a little farther out than you would usually on any other agent to stun the people that are coming out main. Because on an Astra it takes some time after the round starts, so you can even stun them. With a star right here you can stun them, you can even suck them and make it really hard for them to come out. I would still recommend that you use some other util going back here, but in general using a star back there to kind of contain the people in the main area is a pretty good idea. Another thing you can also do is to place a star right here and then smoke this area. Like this, the people that are holding deep can't really have an angle on you, and everyone that is coming out is gonna get hit by some util. Other than that, something I like to do on some eco rounds where I, for example, only have a sheriff, is to place a star here and then walk all the way up and then recall this star. It allows me to go over here, it allows me to play close here, it allows me to go in the smoke even and peek through. It allows me just to play really aggressively on A main, and especially if you have your whole team coming here, it is a pretty strong thing because even if the enemies are using a flash, you can just dodge that flash. If it is, for example, a gecko flash and you are close here inside of the smoke, peeking the enemies from a really unexpected angle. Other than that, default defense smokes for A are one right here in main, which allows you to play in this close corner, which allows you to play close here, waiting for them to come out. Even outside of the smoke, usually there's an enemy smoke right here on stairs. This allows you to play in front of that and then kill at somebody and go back. Other than that, using a smoke either right here to stop the enemies from coming in, even if they open the door, is pretty good because then you can even either go through, just hold the smoke, wait for them to come out, or as I said before, go through and really fight the enemies in their own territory. Other than that, if they have already taken tree, you can use a smoke right here to kind of stop them from coming out. And in a combination with that or even the smoke in main, you can then use a stun or a suck as soon as you think they are coming out. Like that, you're gonna get some free kills, and in general it is a pretty strong thing to do on an Astra, to just wait for the enemies to come in and then use some stuns or use sucks to make them stuck there. Other than that, you can also use your suck to pull out the people from planting. For example, if somebody is going for a plant on a default plant spot right here and you use a suck like this, they're gonna get sucked off of the plant spot and they won't be able to plant. Same thing also here with main and on backside as well, kind of. With a suck like this and a suck like this, it makes it impossible for the enemies to go for a plant, and you will have an easy time killing them, especially if you are from main, or for example even if you are from heaven and you are sucking them out, you can spray them through this edge. Other than that, using your stuns on a retake can also be pretty good. You can use a stun, for example, here in drop, here on backside, here on under, even towards tree. If the tree area is smoked, you can put a star there and even recall that star and then use a stun in tree. With stuns and sucks like these, it makes it pretty hard for the enemies to play on site, and the whole site is basically a minefield. Other than that, also saving at least one star for you to be able to go for a defuse. For example, if you know they have planted right here in this corner, you can use a star right there and then smoke that spot and go for a defuse. This is a pretty strong thing because most of the times if you are going for the defuse, the enemies are going to panic. They are either going to run into it, you can get a free kill, and if you're holding them just like that, it is a pretty good idea to just even tap the spike and wait for them to walk in. If you're retaking A and they have planted for main, you can use a ult pretty effectively, either like this, right in front of the spike, to make it really hard for the enemies to go in, and then your teammate is holding in front of the wall, or you're using a wall right here on main itself to make it pretty hard for the enemies to come in. If you have, for example, a teammate waiting right here, and anyone that is walking through is going to be a free kill. Combined with that, you can then also use a smoke on top of the spike. Other than that, also using your wall like this is pretty good if you're planting for backside, or if the enemies have planted for backside, because that also cuts off the angle from tree and it makes it pretty hard for the enemies to come out. As long as you have somebody holding this area, you should be pretty much in a really safe place to go for a defuse. Other than that, if they've planted backside, you can obviously also ult off backside with a ult like this, but this is a pretty mid ult because you have to have 2 sides for your team to hold, and the enemies can also kind of fast flank over towards stairs, which is a pretty good thing they can do to like stop you from defusing on backside. Again, using your ult to kind of block the shots and block the sound is pretty good, and then using your smoke on the spike to kind of make yourself even more safe to go for defuse. Now switching over towards B side. B side is in general pretty simple. You're just using a star right here and stop the enemies from coming in like that. Other than that, you can also use a star close here to stop the enemies as soon as they're coming out with a stun or even a suck. Pretty similarly, you can also use a star like right here, and then you yourself can go in this corner here close and wait for the enemies to walk past. This is a pretty strong thing you can do. Most of the times the enemies are not going to clear this corner. They're going to walk out, clear behind here, think, yeah, there's nobody here, and then you can have some free kills on the enemies that are going towards side because they are not going to expect you in this corner. It is also kind of a risky play, so I don't recommend that you do it on the enemy's eco, because on the enemy's eco they are most likely going to hit B. And if you are hiding in this corner and they actually clear the corner, or they're actually pre-firing these boxes, you are most likely going to die. And you don't really have a way to get out, because since you're in Astra, you don't have a movement ability. Other than that, just waiting for them to come in with a smoke in main is pretty good. And then you can use a suck right here to suck them from the default planting spot. Same thing also down here. And something a lot of people do not know, especially good on an Astra, because you can kind of see where the default plant spot is. If you're having a suck right there, you can spam through this corner right here and do a lot of damage on the players that are trying to go for a defuse or for a plant. This is especially strong with an Odin or just a spray weapon. With any heavy penetration weapon you can shoot through here, but you can shoot through here with a Vandal pretty well. And it is also impossible for you to like stop the enemies from planting in this close corner with any other weapon than a heavy penetration weapon. Other than that, you can also decide to just wait for a retake. Retakes on B are pretty simple. You just need to kind of clear the close corner here, clear this close corner here, and then smoke off main. So you can use a smoke here, a stun, and a suck right there, and make it pretty hard for the enemies to play on site. Other than that, you can also use your ult pretty well on a retake, like right this, to stop the enemies from coming in and even being able to hear you. And then you can use another smoke on this plant spot to get a free defuse in. And now switching over towards C. C is also pretty simple. You can use a one-way up here, but it isn't the greatest one. As you can see, there's not that much one-way. Actually, the one-way spot is not that big, but most of the times you can still get a lot of value out of this spot. What you can also do is to just straight up smoke this spot right here, if you have some util to take this space, and then even go all the way up here and hold the enemies kind of from coming in and even maybe get you. Other than that, using a default smoke on C is just one like this, and then you can use stuns, sucks in this area below here. Especially good if you have a killjoy, because then as soon as the enemies are gonna come in, the killjoy all armored stuff triggers. You can use your stun, you can use your suck, and the killjoy can pop their mollies. It's gonna be like a minefield on the site, and they have a really hard time getting out, and you're most likely gonna get at least 1 or 2 kills through it. Other than that, going for a plant in the default plant spot right here is pretty good. Using a star to like mark where it is, and then trying to spam as low as you can. As soon as you don't see the bullets going through anymore, you are doing a pretty good job. And you can also use a suck to make it even harder for them to go for a plant, because then they're gonna get double damaged and you have a free time killing them. And for a retake, I recommend you're using stuns and sucks towards the backside area. Or you're using some util that is placed, for example, up here to smoke off the spike, and then have somebody going for the defuse. Other than that, again, smoking main can be okay. It kind of also can hinder you if the enemies have some util to like just throw on, for example, some mollies. It can make it so you have a harder time to defuse, because the people can just walk out, throw their mollies, and then even spray. But if you have a smoke on the spike and a smoke in main, it is gonna be a pretty good combination for the enemies, because if they want to see the person that is going for the defuse, they have to go through the smoke in main and then also through the smoke on site. For an ult on C, just ulting off main should do the job. What you have to kind of worry about with an ult like this is that the enemies are gonna try to like walk through and instantly start spraying you. It is pretty easy to hold for your team. Your team can hold up here, your team can hold on top of these boxes, even up here, and make it really hard for the enemies to go in. But if the enemies have a lurk or try to have, like, for example, their neon run through the door and run all the way through B through waterfall, it can be pretty risky, because you cannot really hear that, because the wall is kind of blocking your noise as well. Now switching over towards attack. On attack on A, you can use the same smoke as I've shown you on defense, also on attack, to make yourself easier to cross over. Then you're going to use one smoke on stairs as well to kind of smoke yourself off. With a smoke on stairs and a recall star right here, you have an easy time to take the A main space because you can cross over to rubble pretty easily, even if the enemies are pushing you. Like that, you can hold the people here pretty easily as well, and even if they have an omen, for example, TPing up here, you're gonna have an easy time killing that omen because you're just standing behind here, being able to cross out without the enemies really doing anything against it. Another really strong thing about this recall smoke right here is it makes it really hard for the enemies to play an AWP on A, because like that, you can use a recall smoke here, and if you want to take even more space, you can use a second recall smoke right here in main, and make it really easy for you to take the space. Other than that, using a stun, for example, in this close corner right here, if you know somebody is stuck there, is pretty strong. Same thing also with the suck. Other than that, using your smokes again on stairs and then one towards heaven should do a pretty solid on taking the side. This smoke right here stops the enemies from stairs from peeking you, and this one stops the enemies from heaven from peeking you. Other than that, using a star, for example, on backside to use it as a stun is also not too bad. And one last thing you can do to kind of clear out the drop area is to use a suck all the way in front, make it pretty hard for the enemies in that area to play there, and if you have some damaging util, you can combine that with that as well. And then other than that, I actually recommend that you are going lurking with an Astra most of the times. That's why I've even shown you this recall smoke right here, because it is an insanely strong lurking smoke as well. You can use that to cross over towards A rubble, have a person on A from your team, for example, you yourself holding the A push, making sure there's nobody pushing, making a lot of noise for their team, even faking, or just getting information over A like that is pretty strong. And since you are an Astra, you can place your util all over the map pretty easily, and you don't even have to be at a certain spot. So using an Astra as a lurker is an insane thing you can do. Other than that, playing post plant on an Astra is also pretty simple. Just if you have 2 stars, use 1 star far away, so you can use it as a suck, and the second star right on the spike, so you can use it as a stun. What you can do to kind of mess with the enemies, most of the people, after they have realized that the enemy have an Astra on the enemy team that is trying to use their suck and stun as a post plant tool, you can use a stun first and then peek out and get a kill, and then use your suck second, because most of the times the enemies are just going to expect that you're going to suck, and they're going to have a hard time getting away. And then using your suck as a first thing sometimes can also be pretty good, because even if they are like waiting for you to peek or waiting for you to stun, they tap, they swing out, thinking yeah you might stun. You can still use a suck, make it harder for them to like hold an angle because they're moving, and you have an easy time killing them. Also, playing pretty safe on a post plant is not the worst idea on an Astra, because your post plant util is really important for the team and it can win you a lot of rounds. And now switching over towards B. On B you can use smokes in heaven, in link, and in A link. But if you are not sure where the enemies are usually going, I recommend just using a heaven and a ceiling smoke and not really smoking the A link. If you know, however, the enemies are pushing A, if you know, however, the enemies are pushing A, you can use a smoke right here, because the fastest rotate from A towards B is this door right here, and if with a smoke right here, it makes it almost impossible for them to stop you from going into site. So you can use a smoke here on heaven and here on link. And other than that, just using a smoke heaven on C-link and using a recall star on A-link can also be pretty strong. Smoke, recall, makes it pretty easy for you to take the site, and then you can just hold the people from L. Other than that, using a stun right here, if you know somebody is going to be in that area, or using stuns towards the link area right here can also be pretty strong to kind of stop the enemies from pushing out and make it easier for your team to take the site. And again, post plant can be played really well with just using a suck and a stun. Other than that, B is also a pretty good site for an Astra ult. You can also use your ult on A, by the way, but on B it is just really strong. You need your ult to like cut off this area, and then other than that, you can even save your second or a smoke for here, and then use a smoke for your team to like smoke off an area where the enemies are most likely coming from. If you are using this wall right here, it is also kind of a good wall to get onto A, because as you can see, the wall here goes through the stairs area and also through front side, so it allows your teammate to even like break the door right here on A-link and then go over towards A. Other than that, if you are using your ult, I recommend that you communicate that with your team, and that you have some util that goes behind your wall, because your wall can be pretty easily peeked through, but they can't really hear anything. What you can also use your wall for is to use it in combination with, for example, an Omen ult, to use it in combination with, for example, an Omen ult or a Euro TP, to like make a small pocket for the enemies not really being able to hear them, and then they can just TP there and get a free kill on the enemies from behind. And now switching over towards C. C is pretty simple. You're using a star right here and a star right here as the default smokes. But what you have to kind of worry about in C is the early main peak. How you counteract that as an Astra is to place a star right here for your team, and then you recall that. Then you have teammates going out to the left side, teammates going out to the right side. Even better if you have a Gecko that can flash out, or maybe even a KO, or just any flash agent that can flash out, and make it really easy for your team to take the main space. This also counteracts the one way that is coming on top of these boxes, because like that you can cross over and like be in front of the one way. Other than that, again using smokes here, and maybe using a stun or a suck towards backside or towards the pillar area is a pretty good idea. Stun and then suck to make it pretty hard for the enemies to play on site. What you can also use your ult for, by the way, is using your ult kind of like this. It isn't a perfect ult, but it allows you to kind of block off the waterfall area and block off the CT area. And what it also allows you to do is to open this door without the enemies really having the noise, because as you can see, if you're on the other side, you don't hear the door. You can see that it is opening on the minimap, but you are not hearing it. So a ult like this can be pretty strong to also fast rotate over towards B or have a really good flank on them. And other than that, playing post plant with a suck here, and maybe even a stun on top of the spike to make it able for you to spray exactly where the spike is planted at. So you can use a suck first, and then you can use the star as an information on where the spike is, and you can get a free kill on the enemies that are trying to go for a defuse, even if they are inside of the smoke. You can also obviously also use it as a stun to make it harder for the enemies to get away after they are on the spike trying to go for the defuse. If I had to give Astra a rating from S to F, I'd actually give her the S tier. In my opinion, Astra is a pretty underused pick on a map like Lotus, because she has a really wide variety of util that can be used pretty well on a map like Lotus. I think Omen is still a pretty strong pick to pick on this map, but Astra is a really strong second pick that you can also pick on this map if you want to play a smokes agent. I know she doesn't really have the explosiveness of an Omen with his TPs and stuff, but you can also use an Astra pretty well on a lot of different situations on this map. That would be it from me. If you want to see any other agent on any other map, write them down in the comments, and if you want to see anything else Vant related, write it down there as well. And as always, don't forget to like and sub, and come say hi to me on Twitch, where I stream almost daily. Have a great rest of your day, and see you guys very soon. Bye!